In general, the rule is that if your R is greater than 1, your number of cases on a day-to-day basis keep increasing. If they're less than 1, your cases are decreasing. I would not take a prediction seriously if it said that we will definitely have a wave starting on the 15th of September or the 15th of October, because these are all just guesses. I don't think you will see a third wave that has anything like the strength that we saw in the second wave.
Professor Menon, my first question is, at what stage do we start to worry about this R naught? The last time R naught rose to these levels, about one was in February, March, beginning of second wave. What is it telling me now about India and, in the next month, 2 months?
So right now across much of India, you have R values that are a little below 1. And that's a good sign that tells you that the epidemic is on its downswing in those regions. This is not true across all of India. Kerala still has an R which is a little above 1. Parts of the northeast have R values which are somewhat larger and somewhat further away from 1. In general, the rule is that if your R is greater than 1, your number of cases on a day-to-day basis keep increasing. If they're less than 1, your cases are decreasing. If they're increasing, that signals an incipient increase leading to a potential epidemic locally. If they're decreasing, that tells you that the epidemic has run its course and is on its way down. Many things can interfere with this. For example, a new variant can come along that is just more transmissible and moves more easily between people. That can drive your R up. So I wouldn't say this is the only important number. I mean, I think the test positivity, which is the fraction of tests that you conduct, of which are positive, the WHO says that number should be less than 5%. Currently across much of India, it's probably around 1.5 to 2%, which is a good sign. So I think it's a combination of many indices. It's a combination of the test positivity, of the actual number of cases, because even a very large caseload, even it doesn't budge very much from that value, is still a problem in terms of public health. The growth and the shrinkage is controlled, as we said, by the R numbers. I keep track of all of these. The problem is, of course, that a lot of this depends upon the testing that you do. If you don't test, you don't pick up cases. And the gap between the number of cases that you manage to pick up and the number of cases that are out there in the community could potentially be large. That is what we have to watch out for, because these cases, these undetected cases, that could potentially give rise to an undetected background of cases, which could be going up or down. It's just that if you don't test enough, you won't detect it.
When you're talking about testing rate, now there's one state that we do know tests very heavily, and that's Kerala. And Kerala has remained this constant concern in some senses because, not overall cases have not come down at the pace that's expected. Similarly with Maharashtra, but specifically with Kerala, what is happening there? If you could just break it down for us.
So Kerala is a mystery. And I mean, my own feeling is that Kerala was actually somewhat more successful than other states in terms of controlling its case numbers and in terms of controlling its infections. It shut down fairly stringently, and it sort of unlocked down also with fairly rigorously. And if you look at the sero surveys conducted in Kerala, which found about 10% of people had prior infection by early January, by about the 10th of January, compared to numbers like 20% plus across all of India on average, and much larger than that in the individual cities, in the major cities of India. So that suggests to me that overall, fewer people on average are infected in Kerala as a fraction of the population compared to the rest of the country, that the intervention that the Kerala government did were somewhat successful in keeping these numbers down. But on the other hand, there are more people to be infected. And that's a negative of this, that there are more people potentially who could be infected. And I think that's what you're seeing in this reluctance of the numbers to come down. It's just that people are now slowly getting infected. There is a background of infection. But importantly, those numbers are not large enough to cause a serious strain on the health system. And that's what we should be looking at.
Right. And similarly, in the northeastern states, which have sort of become a concern right now, the vaccination rate here has also been much higher than the rest of the country. And yet you're seeing this rise of cases. Is it a similar situation as Kerala, or is there something different that's going on that we need to study more in Northeast?
If you look at the curves, it looks as though the Northeast epidemic in much of the northeastern states never really came down to low levels after the second wave. They came down a little bit and then they began to show their uptrend. So maybe this is just the fact that it's a second wave that hasn't really completed its course. And that's where these new cases are coming from. I mean, these are all readings of the data. Potentially they're wrong, but whereas much of central, north, western India saw a peak in cases signaling the second wave very much the same time. This lagged a little bit in the northeast. And I suspect that might be the reason why it never really went to completion, which is why you're seeing the uptick in cases now. And of course, you pointed to the role of vaccinations. Vaccinations are very important. And we need to step up vaccinations in those regions where we suspect that there is still a background, large susceptible population yet to be infected.
Right. How concerned should people like us be who've gone through a terrible, terrible second wave in North India, in Delhi? When you're looking at these figures in Maharashtra and see the numbers rising again, something similar happened before the second wave where, one saw the rise in Maharashtra but ignored all the precautions that we should have been taking in Delhi. So how concerned should we be, or is this wave going to happen in different parts of the country at different time, and that's something that we need to accept and act on?
That's a hard question, but it's very hard to confine a wave to one region and not have it in another because people travel. There are no hard boundaries between states. There are people who travel by air, and something that a new variant that is signaled in Delhi can move to Chennai or to Hyderabad or to Kolkata within the space of a couple of hours. So I think whatever we can do is only a temporary thing. If there is something new, an upsurge in cases that is significant and comes from a new variant that the body has not seen before and potentially has a little less immunity against, this is a number that you would expect to rise across India at pretty much the same time rather than be dominated just by one or two states. Currently, I would not worry too much about Maharashtra. I think this is a sort of temporary blip. And I think whenever you open up, you will see a slight rise in cases. And Maharashtra and Kerala are recording cases well. So I think this does reflect some underlying reality. But given that Maharashtra really took the brunt of the second wave in a sense, the number of cases across, it really started off from remote areas, from rural areas in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in Maharashtra, that the new Delta variant took off. And I would suspect there's still a fair amount of immunity from prior infection, either from the first wave or the second wave. And that will certainly help stem a very steep rise in cases in the future. So overall, I would be positive, not just about Maharashtra, but about much of India.
Okay, that's my next question as well. The lead scientist for the government panel actually just said that the third wave will hit between October and November, but the cases will be nearly half of what we saw in the second peak. There's another scientist who said third wave has already begun. I just wanted your thoughts on the third wave and all these predictions that are coming, and what are your thoughts on it?
I would not believe any prediction that is sort of several months out. In fact, I think the role of theoretical modeling should be to really look at the short term and to give some indication of what might happen in the case of certain histories playing out. For example, if a new variant comes that is, let us say, twice more transmissible than the Delta variant or the other variants that we have seen. But I would not take a prediction seriously if it said that we will definitely have a wave starting on the 15th of September or the 15th of October, because these are all just guesses. And as I said, I think much of modeling would suggest that the intensity of any future third wave should be distinctly less than the intensity that we saw in the second wave for multiple reasons. One is we do know that you do have some level of immunity from a prior infection. You could have either got that in the first wave or the second wave. We are right now at about 38% of the eligible population being vaccinated with at least one dose, and a smaller fraction with 6 to 8% with the full 2 doses. We need to step that up. With the combination of vaccinations, prior infections, and some measure of caution in how we open up should, I think, tide us over. And I don't think we will see anything of the sort of the devastation that we saw in the second wave.
I just want to end by asking you, I know you were amongst the experts who had written to the government saying release more data and make data more transparent so that people who are studying data can have a better understanding of it. I was just wondering, has anything changed since then?
There were initial signs of openness on behalf of the principal scientific advisor to the government, Professor Vijay Raghavan, who wrote pretty soon after the scientists sent their letters and said that he would make data available. He instructed the various organizations, the ICMR, the NCDC, etc., to do this. On the ground, I don't think there has been much movement, and that is something that is very worrying.